Welcome, listeners, to a realm where shadows dance and whispers echo. I'm your host, Rick Clifton, and this is Quills and Chills, the podcast that brings you face to face with the masterminds behind the macabre. In each episode, we journey into the minds of horror writers and filmmakers to uncover the secrets lurking within their tales of terror. From classic tales to modern nightmares, we'll traverse the corridors of the human psyche and unravel the threads of dread that keep us turning the pages or sitting out there in the dark. Welcome to Quills and Chills. Hello and welcome back to Quills and Chills. I'm Rick Clifton, and today we are talking with USA Today bestselling author Jennifer Thorne. Jennifer is an American author of books for adults and young readers, and she writes from a 19th century Cotswold cottage. Is that correct? Is that what I read? And she writes alongside her husband, two sons, and various other animals, which I absolutely love. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it.
I should note that the various other animals, by the way, it sounds like I own all the animals, but most of them are like just roaming around my town. I have a dog. I wish I had a capybara, but I do not yet have a capybara.
A dog and various wildlife.
Yeah.
So, great. So before we get into the specifics of this amazing, riveting book that I have told all my friends about and have told everyone to get a copy because it's really great and I can't wait to dive in, I just would love to get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What inspires you creatively?
That's a really good question because it comes from all angles. I just think it stemmed from being a daydreamer as a kid. You know, I was that kid in school that would get comments, you know, like if she paid attention every once in a while, it might be helpful for her learning. So, and I had gone to drama school and I had intended to be an actor, but you know, my sort of daydreams about acting success, I would build out the entire plot of whatever film in my head I was going to win an Oscar for. I'd write the whole thing. So it took me a long time to realize, you know, maybe you should just write stories instead of just thinking them up and then trying to get auditions and not getting the part. I was not a very good actress. So my ideas just come from sort of little like glimmer what ifs, and then they bloom really, really quickly into full structured 3-act plot lines. So I always start with full plots. I know the end of the book before I start writing it. And I'm definitely a plotter, not a pantser. I don't know if you know that expression. A plotter is that you lay out everything that you're going to write, and then you kind of connect the dots as you write, and that's your creative process. And then a pantser, you just let the book kind of unfurl before you as you type. And I tried to do that once, and it wound up being like 14 pages on food, and I think I was just hungry at the time, and it just went absolutely nowhere. So I'm very much a plot person. So the trick for me is that I have like 52 books on the spreadsheet I keep of ideas. And the trick is to actually write them once I've come up with the whole plot for them. Because I sort of think like, oh, that's great, that's done. But that it's not actually anything that you could put into a book that people would want to read. So yeah, that's my process.
I absolutely love that. That was one of my questions is what's your process? Do you dive in with both feet or are you a plotter? I am very much like you. I studied acting as well. I thought I wanted to be an actor. And then when I got to California here in Los Angeles, I quickly realized I don't really want to be in front of the camera as much as I want to be behind it because I was dissecting the stuff and trying to figure out how it all happens. And not so much about how I bring it to life, but more about how do I get somebody else to bring it to life? So it was very much the same for me in that regard.
Well, I was actually moving to LA from New York, like pushed me over into, I'm definitely a writer. And the thing that did it actually was I would go out to clubs with my friends who were actors, and guys would come up to me and go, "So I assume you're an actress?" And I loved going, "No, I'm a writer." And they'd back off like, "Oh, I don't want to do it."
Oh, can't mess with her. That's hilarious. Unlike you, though, I do not know the end of anything that I'm writing. I get to about the midway point, and then I'm like, I don't really know where it goes from there. So it's like it just sits. So
my problem's the middle. The middle, I'll have the beginning and the end, and it's usually like these big set pieces that are awesome. And then in my outline, it'll be like, say I'm writing I've written YA romances earlier in my career. And so my outlines tended to be, you know, like a lot of setup, really specific, great, like a great ending. And the middle would be, they fall in love. So that's the entire second act in one sentence. So I get to the middle and I go, oh God, I really haven't written anything for this. Like I have not been specific. I think that's
that's interesting that you talk about writing YA. That was something I was curious about. Your work does span various genres. So I'm kind of curious how you arrived to horror. And you know, as a person that's passionate about horror, I'm always very curious how people get here.
I love horror, and I think it took me getting a couple books in to actually look back over myself as a reader and realize that this is what I've loved all along. When I was a kid, I read not just, you know, scary stories to tell in the dark, but I would pick up The Ghostly Register, which was this like amazing tome full of real life hauntings, like state to state, because it was really important to me that be able to go visit these places and, you know, decide for myself at the age of 9 whether they were actually haunted. I went to a few of them. Like my parents would take me for like birthday dinners to like a haunted restaurant. And I never experienced anything supernatural. And it was really, really annoying. But yeah, I was always into the supernatural and the paranormal in particular. Less so like slasher kind of stuff, just because I'm a weenie. That's like my line of that's too scary for me. But all my stuff has kind of leaned towards genre. And getting into YA contemporaries was kind of an accident. I actually got my agent with a sci-fi Western, which I've never had published. And then as we were sort of on sub with that, I just real quick had this idea about a girl who finds out that her like long lost father is the Republican nominee for president and what that would do to a person. So I just wrote that as kind of like this would be fun to write. Let's see what happens. And that's what wound up getting published. So I went down that track for a little bit. But as a reader and a writer, I'm really much more of a genre person. To such an extent that, you know, beloved books that are contemporary, I'll get sort of 50 pages in reading it and I'll think, this is a lot like real life. I'm having a hard time with this book. Like there's nothing happening that is completely implausible. And so it's kind of lost me. So I'm definitely a genre writer at heart. And particularly the dark side. It's been really, really nice to be able to indulge the darker side of my imagination lately with Loot, and now even more so with Diavola, which I think goes a lot darker than Loot did, actually.
Well, that is a perfect segue for me because I really want to explore your dark side in Diavola. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Diavola, please. First of all, let's just do the obligatory. Give me sort of your elevator pitch version of what Diavola is all about.
So Diavola follows an American upper middle class family. It's the sort of older parents with adult kids and grandkids. And every year they take the whole gang out for some sort of lovely luxury vacation. And this year they've decided to get this villa in a small town outside Florence in Tuscany. It's a historic villa. It's very nice, beautiful views, swimming pool. And unfortunately, it is just absolutely riddled with ghosts, one of whom is deeply malevolent and parasitic. And then the other issue with the family is that they don't actually get along very well. They're not really the most quality group of people you've ever met. And our protagonist is, I mean, Anna is also a difficult person in her own right. She's no angel, but she's better than the rest of them, I would say. And you see that borne out over the course of the story in the way that each of them reacts to this haunting taking over their beautiful planned vacation, and how their various personality flaws kind of conspire to make them make some poor decisions along the way. So yeah, that's what Diavola is about.
I always like to sort of pull a quote or two about the book before we get too far in. I pulled two for this one because one is actually on the cover of the book, which I absolutely love. It says it's exquisitely paced, thoroughly entertaining thrill ride, delightfully dysfunctional family dynamics that draw you in while the dread cinches tight around your ankles. The reason I love this quote is because it is written so I don't want to, no spoilers, but it is so written so perfectly for the story that I thought it was fantastic. I love it. And then great choice on putting it on the book cover.
The blurbs that I got were like, they were way better written than anything I've ever written. I love the blurbs so much. It's like, wow, guys, thank you.
I love it. The other one I wanted to sort of highlight is from Clay McLeod Chapman. I talked to Clay a little while back about his latest book, What Kind of Mother? And I love the quote so much. It's kind of long, so I'll just go with the first sentence. Jennifer Thorne scorches the petals right off the White Lotus with this supernatural downward spiral of gut-wrenching, teeth-baring terror. And I just love Clay's brain and the way he thinks and the stuff that he says. So it's fantastic.
Amazing.
So.
Yeah, he's so brilliant. Yeah, the White Lotus thing is funny because I'd not seen the show until I'd already, delivered Diavola. I get to catch up on TV when I turn a book in, sort of pop culture. The same thing happened with Loot. Like I turned the book in, it's done, and then I watched Midsummer and I was like, oh wow, there's some connections here. Totally accidental. But yeah, White Lotus, especially the second season in Italy, I thought this pairs well with Diavola.
It really, really does. So I did want to talk a little bit about your characters, and particularly, all of them. There's Anna, obviously, is a favorite. Ben's boyfriend, Christopher, but particularly Anna. How did you just she's so complex, and she has, obviously, like you described, she has all of these flaws, but she's also she's kind of a badass in just such a natural, organic way. And I fell in love with her right off the bat. She just handles people beautifully throughout the whole thing. And I just wanted to sort of talk about how you came to developing that character, and is she based on anyone that you know? And
well, everybody's kind of based on different parts of my own personality. I sort of ascribe to that sort of family theory of psychology, like Inside Out, that I'm
right.
one person, I'm the different people depending on the circumstances. So sometimes I am Nicole. So Nicole's the sister who wants to make the entire vacation revolve around her and her children. And that was me. I took a trip to Italy with my extended family, which I really hope that they don't think that this is about them, because it really and truly isn't. But yeah, I was the person that was like, okay, so the kids get cranky at 5 for dinner, so we're going to need to be sitting down by 5:30. And it was my lovely parents that were like, Jen, that's not how it works in Italy. You need to calm down. So sometimes I am those people, but a lot of time I'm more like Anna, where I have a very healthy sense of how far to care what people think about me. If it's not actually, logistically impacting me in my life, if someone dislikes me, I truly don't care. And it's something that my friends and my husband kind of it boggles their mind that I can just sort of cut it off the caring at a certain point, which might be like a neurodiverse thing, who knows? But I like to put that into the character of Anna. I wanted to do kind of like a reverse Hill House thing. You have the character of Eleanor in Hill House, where the house, plays upon the group dynamic and drawing somebody apart and isolating them in order to sort of feed off of them and absorb them into the house. And that's what's happening in Diavola, except Anna has the opposite personality of Eleanor. She's perfectly happy being on her own. She does not care. And that was very fun to write.
And I absolutely loved her. I don't know if it was the first, but it was definitely an early encounter with the ghost, the spirit, where she was like, oh, she's just immediately treated it like, oh, you think you're going to come in here and do this to me? No, this is not going to happen. And I just love that. That to me was like, okay, this is the character that I've always wanted to see in a ghost story. I don't want to see the one that's haunted and tortured and she's fighting back almost from the get. And I loved that. Loved. So
I think the thing that helps her to fight back is she has a flexible mindset. So there's a scene where they're all sort of around the table debating the existence of ghosts, whether the place is haunted, whether ghosts are real. And her mentality is, how would I know? We're very limited by our senses. I'm going to go with, I don't know, and stay flexible about it. Whereas Christopher's like, no, it's fake. I think the people that are really strongly holding on to their own beliefs about whether ghosts are real or not, or whether they're going to allow ghosts to derail their vacation, they're going to have a harder time with the haunting than someone like Anna, who's like, yeah, this is happening. I mean, clearly I'm going to change my mind about the existence of ghosts because there's one right behind me in the bathroom. So once you sort of get past that hurdle, then you can start to go, am I just going to cower, or am I going to roll with this and adapt?
Yeah, exactly. What am I going to do? So, and the secondary characters, well, you brought up Christopher. As annoying as he was in the story, he's also kind of, for me, like, if you're going to put somebody in a role like that, I just kind of loved him. It's like, it's just, everybody knows a Christopher, right? And it's just like, oh, this guy, come on.
Yeah, exactly. He was so fun to write. He got some of my favorite lines.
Oh,
and
I know. It was with
the friction between he and Anna was really, really fun to write.
Right. Did you have a favorite, though, of all the secondary characters?
I mean, I think, like, I wouldn't say that.
I realize that's like asking a parent to choose their favorite child, but still.
I liked writing Nicole because she's just so self-absorbed and sort of energetically delusional, self-delusional. So, and also she has those moments where I can sort of make fun of myself. Not all of her, I should say. The really egregious things she does, I would not say are really core parts of my own personality, but the mom bits I thought were fun to write because I did definitely get snippy like that with my children on vacation. I like to write Justin too. Poor Justin, her husband, who's like the little bit, he's also the outsider of the family, but more naturally so because he's an in-law. He was also fun to write. So I had fun with everybody, really. Benny kind of broke my heart to write because he's just so spineless. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Even the sort of like ancillary Italian characters, like the woman that steals all the cats. I liked her.
That was funny. It was actually, there were so many like laugh out loud moments in between me, like being afraid to go to sleep at night, and one of those is when I think Anna's talking to the kids, and Waverly in particular, maybe, about how Italian grandmothers like to scoop up children and bake them into bread. And I was like, oh my God, that is something I would absolutely do. So I was totally into that.
That's like your responsibility as the aunt or uncle to like
exactly.
Nudge the children more into inappropriate territory.
Exactly. I found it also very interesting. I found Anna to be very much like her dad when it came to interacting with the family, but only Anna always got called out for it, and Dad never did. That's one thing that I sort of took away from it. It was like, well, come on, he's acting the same way. But
no, Dad's never gonna I think Dad has a certain kind of like, he's armored by the amount of money that he's spent on everybody, and everybody's a little bit intimidated. It's like a sleeping bear. Like, don't poke the bear. Whereas exactly. Anna, they just poke her. That's recreationally. All they do is poke Anna. So yeah.
Poor Anna. I loved it though, but she could take it. I think for me anyway, of course you would know more than me, but I just felt like it kept happening because she's someone that could take it, so it was a place to put stuff when it had to be put. I love the fact that this was equal parts family drama and also haunted house. I'm kind of curious though, what's your favorite scariest moment overall? I can tell you mine, and I'm going to try to not do spoilers here, but it's the dream sequence, the chapter that was devoted to the dream that Anna had. I think I knew by the end of that chapter exactly what it was, and I was like, oh, because that is one of my own personal fears is fugue states. And sorry.
Yeah, I was not scared by anything I wrote. I mean, I tried to sort of the aesthetic of the ghost I find very frightening, the kind of like well girl thing or like the ring, but with the sort of neon yellow hair, the kind of rotten aesthetic, and the fact that you can never see her face fully, I found kind of that's something I found unsettling. So I gave that to my ghost. But no, all the kind of parts that I think scare people the most, I was like, this part's great. This is the most fun part of the book. And I think that's how it is writing hard. I don't know do any of us really scare ourselves? I guess we do. There was one, like there's one little moment on an airplane. It's like blink and you miss it. But that freaked me out, that you could be on an airplane and there's no escape.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. So one of the themes in this story is, I guess, is spell casting. And it made me start wondering, at what point, where in your life did you discover that words have power?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I think it was through reading. I think it was through reading and the transportive power of it. I used to have this, like, when I would go and visit my dad, I had this walk-in closet that with all my toys in it. And I would sit and shut the door and just read book after book after book. And I wasn't there anymore. I had gone elsewhere. So the book as a portal, words as a doorway into another world that you then have memories of as if it really happened to you. I think that that's amazing. And yeah, it sort of happens to me as a writer too. Sometimes I'll forget that somebody I wrote is not a real person I could check up on Facebook or something, like, how are they doing? Oh, they're not real. Right. Okay.
But then you could always write their own update if you needed to do that as well.
Exactly.
Is there a particular moment or a scene or anything in Diavola that was particularly meaningful or maybe even challenging for you to write?
The moments of kind of grappling with the dissolution of her family, I think, was hard. The last call she has with her twin brother, I thought, sorry about that. I found that I always got weepy writing that. She got weepy experiencing it, and that one would get me in the heart. There's usually something that I go, oh, in writing a book, and it was that scene every time. Even doing like line edits on it, I'd go. But everything else was really just pretty fun. Basically,
I will be honest, I was hoping for one more scene after that, just because I just was like, I feel like you did. It's like it's right here, and I was like, one more, just give me one more. Come on, Jennifer, one more. It's like,
that was
I do
his decision right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do love, and again, without spoilers, I do love the ending of the book and how things landed in the end of the book. It was equal part sad, but also perfect in a way, in my opinion. It just felt beautiful, like a beautiful ending. So
it was a happy ending. And I don't want to promise this for all my books moving forward, but I think I am a happy ending horror author. And I wanted to lead you into that, like, well, this is going to be spoilery, but a lot of books, like Hill House, they end on tragically, they, succumb to the supernatural. And I think it's more fun personally to be like, how on earth is she going to get out of this? You can create this impossible situation and then find a way through it. But it was hard. It was hard to figure that out. But originally the book was called Diavoli, which is like more than one devil. But then we realized that the female of that in Italian would be Diavole, and I didn't really like that. So we changed it to Diavola, which is just the feminine form of devil. But the original idea was that there are a few devils in this. It could refer to her family in addition to the ghost, La Dama Bianca. But it really, in the end, it's her becoming a devil in order to fight a devil. And that's really just acknowledging her own, the darkness inside herself, which isn't even darkness. It's just, living her own truth fully without worrying about the conventionality of it or how palatable it is to the people around her.
I love it. That brings me to my next question. I'm kind of curious, was there any favorite moment that you ultimately ended up editing out of this book?
Oh, there must be. I think there were more, I think originally, and this was like an outline thing. I don't think I wound up writing it, but there were more sort of moments going around there was more sightseeing basically, because I love that area of Italy so much. And I wanted to include more places that I'd actually been to. And so there were more moments of her kind of unraveling the history of the place that in the end was very easily condensed into kind of backstory through the mind meld that she has with the ghost, where she can actually see what happened to this place, Monteperso, and what happened to this family during the Renaissance that this woman had sort of invaded and infiltrated and poisoned. That was spelled out a lot more kind of gradually and unnecessarily slowly. So I think it worked out the way it was supposed to.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I do have a question. It's kind of a fun question, but let's just see where it goes. I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll try. If you could turn this novel into a movie and cast actors to play those main characters, who would you choose and why?
Well, Anna I would choose somebody like Kristen Stewart or Dakota Johnson. Like, they both have a really strong kind of like, I don't give a shit vibe. Do you know what I mean? They're not trying to be adorable all the time, and a lot of actresses are. And there's a little edge and hostility to them that I really actually find very compelling. So somebody like that for Anna would be great. I don't know about the supporting cast. I always pictured like Nicole was very beautiful. She's like a Margot Robbie, like perfect, kind of blonde. Christopher and Benny are tough. Christopher's such a good role, and I think there's a lot of people who could do it well. Probably a comedian. Who can
I
just
could
get
totally
that.
see Glenn Powell in a role like that. I just he's perfect, right? So I
Yeah.
totally see that.
Like there's some lines that I would want to play Christopher. Like, this whole area is economically depressed. It's making me feel economically depressed.
Great stuff. I just love it so much. He is the guy that you love to hate. So
yeah. And then I think Katerina would be some like impossibly hot model, because it's always fun to see somebody like really gorgeous in those roles, like in the flashbacks, and then they're like rotten.
Yeah, exactly. Then did you get to see them not so gorgeous?
Yeah.
So after having tackled such a scary and riveting story in Diavola, what are you planning next that you can talk to us about?
Well, I do have my sideline is I write historical kind of adventure novels with my friend Lee Kelly. So we have a book out in November called The Starlets, which once again, it was funny. I was trying to find a through line between this and Diavola. It is, once again, it's Americans, wealthy Americans in danger in Italy, but like a totally different story. It's about these starlets from the 1950s who are shooting a historical epic off the coast of Italy, and they realize the whole production is a kind of a front for a mafia drug running operation. So they have to go on the run from the mob through the Riviera, and it kind of touches on all these different real historical moments, including the chariot race scene in Ben-Hur. So that one's fun. That one's out in November, and then I'm working on something else with her that's quite dark and gritty that I can't talk about yet, but it's a mystery. And I'm working on a werewolf book, sort of werewolves in Saltburn. I don't know if you've seen werewolves in a big country estate. Yeah.
I am intrigued. I will keep an eye out for that. So for sure. So the book is called Diavola. It is available everywhere now. And as we always like to say here on the show, please go support your local bookstores. Jennifer, can you tell us how our audience can find you on social media?
Yeah, I am on Instagram and Threads. I think I'm Jen Marie Thorne on there. I'm sort of on Facebook, but very inconsistent. And I'm even more inconsistent, but I have a good time on TikTok as well. I think I'm Jennifer Thorne author on there. So you can see me be really self-deprecating on TikTok. That's all I can do.
I love it. Perfect. I will add it here as well for the audience. So Jennifer, thank you so much for talking to me today. I cannot tell you, this book scared the living crap out of me, but I wouldn't change a thing. It's absolutely perfect. And like I said at the beginning, I have made all of my friends go and buy this book. So it's a fun read. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time here on Quills and Chills. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Quills and Chills. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the mysterious and the haunted. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to support us by subscribing on your preferred podcast platform and leaving us a rating or review, because your feedback helps keep those chills running down both our spines. And feel free to share the show with your favorite fellow horror enthusiasts. Also, if you guys have any spooky stories, strange encounters, or paranormal experiences of your own, I'd love to hear them. Reach out to me on social media or email me at quillsandchillspodcast@gmail.com. Who knows? Your story might end up on a very special episode. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I will see you back here next time on Quills and Chills. Bye, y'all.